Your home can be more than just a home. It can be your own personal fitness retreat, a place where you break a sweat, break your personal record, or just get a break in the day. Johnson Fitness and Wellness is your partner in creating the perfect home gym. And now, enjoy up to 50% off top-rated treadmills, ellipticals starting at $5.99, and major discounts on strength equipment. Visit a local store or johnsonfitness.com. Your home gym is just a few steps away.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. You are listening to Sunday Talks with Kellie and Lisa. I am the Kellie part of that.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
I knew you were there somewhere. For the past several weeks, we've been talking about money and your relationship with money. Today, I think we're going to take a step back. We're going to talk a little bit about self-esteem and self-love. Really, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. If your relationship with yourself is not good, the relationship you have with money or your job or anyone else won't be as good as it can be either. What do you think, Lisa? We kind of talked about self-esteem at the very end of the show last week, but what do you think?
No, I think that's absolutely true. You are with yourself every day of the week. You are always with yourself, and you have to have a good relationship with your acceptance and, having that self-esteem and feeling of value and of worth. Interesting thing happened to me this past week. So I'm usually one to say how grateful I am or how blessed I am to be where I live, to, be working and things along those lines. I was actually at a pretty toxic environment with my workspace, and I said was for a reason. I was fired on Thursday. I had been trying so hard to be grateful for the paycheck, to be grateful that I had a job when so many people don't, and just that I could get up and go and do something to be productive and to contribute to society and to do my part with my contributions to taxes and things along those lines. However, there was that small part of me that dreaded it every day. And there wasn't anything that I was trying as hard as I possibly could. And I was grateful that I did have the steadiness of that income, that I knew that I could rely on, my paycheck to support my bills. I was working a role that didn't quite align with me. I was doing something where I knew there was something more out there for me, money-wise, leadership-wise, and that just aligned with me a lot more. So it was hard to sit there and try to focus on the role that I was being paid to do. My portion of my energy contribution into this relationship was skewed. It was not as high as it could have been. I was definitely, however you want to term with it, I was not vibing on the level that I should have been. But my employer, I felt that I was not getting the same from them. And so when there was just a collision of energy, and it wasn't necessarily a good thing. So I was terminated on Thursday. I woke up this morning. I stepped on the scale, and I was 5 pounds lighter than I had been on Thursday. I haven't changed a thing in my diet. In fact, my dinner last night was potato chips and dip. We all have moments, right? We all have weaknesses. And I think I snacked on some Oreo cookies later in the night, right? So it's not like I haven't increased my exercise. I haven't focused on what goes in, I haven't done any of that. And I am 5 pounds lighter. Also, when I woke up this morning, there was just this almost fairy tale-like feeling. I pushed back my covers, and I swear I heard birds singing, and I heard the angels, and I wanted to join them in chorus, but my boyfriend was still asleep in bed, so I didn't. However, when I looked out my window, there's this feeling of pure gratitude washed over me. I am jobless. I have to go find something. I get to go find something to replace what I lost. But now I have so many options laid out in front of me. I can go and find that fulfilling role. I can open my own business. I can do both. Where I felt squashed at this other role, where I really, it just didn't, there was chaos. There was so much turmoil in myself. So it was a blessing in disguise. But now that I have this burden lifted, when I look out my window and say, I am truly blessed to be here in this moment right here and right now, it's the truth. It's not faking it until I make it. It's the absolute truth. There's just this sense of peace and serenity and true happiness, true joy that I'm experiencing right now. Even though I have no idea how I'm going to pay my rent next month. It's okay, though. It will be fine. It will be fine. I will figure something out. I will make it work. And it's just incredible.
And,
I have no idea if that was part of the topic, but
I think there's something to be said for losing emotional weight. When we put ourselves in situations that we know are not for our best and we're just trying to kind of bide our time, we do, I think, subconsciously hang on to things and weight and people that we really should be letting go of. It comes from fear, I think, and you talked before about how you kind of felt this was coming. And it's sort of a fear of the unknown. And then once it happens, it's like, oh, I don't have to hold on to that anymore. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And I think that probably has a lot more to do with weight loss for many of us than we think about. And, to answer your question, it does kind of have something to do with what we're talking about, because you have done some inner work and you've realized that you're okay. Right now, in this moment, you are fine. Another job will come along and you have the confidence in your ability to find another one. That all comes from self-love. That comes from, I've tried being grateful for something that didn't feel right, and now I don't have to do that anymore because it's gone. And, like you said, they kind of did you a favor because it wasn't the right position for you. Sometimes what happens when we go through things like that is if you go through something you just don't feel it's the right fit and you're not grateful for it, you kind of sabotage yourself, because anytime we are not grateful, we feel like, well, this isn't a good enough fit. I must not be good enough for the right fit. And we kind of sabotage ourselves. But when we look at things through the eyes of gratitude, we can see, okay, this isn't the right fit right now, but you know what? I'm going to make it work for as long as it can work for me, and then something better will come along. It's a different mindset. And sometimes all we really need to do is kind of change our perspective on things. Your perception is most of what you feel. And if you're in a situation where you perceive that you're being abused in some way, or you're not being valued as much as you should be, it kind of undermines every other aspect in your life. It just does. Those things may be very true, but by dwelling on what's wrong, you may be missing what's right. And that's why you feel like you feel, because you were trying your best and you were looking at it from a perception of, I'm grateful to have this. But now that you don't have to talk yourself into having it, it's like a weight has been lifted, literally in your case. That goes along with your relationship with yourself. And, that's why, you feel like you feel right now. One of the things that I was talking to someone the other day, and what we were doing is we were walking along and we were looking for heart rocks, heart-shaped rocks, or rocks with a hole in them that looked like a heart, or even, just something from nature, even a tree that had, a heart shape in the bark. And what we were talking about was how we see ourselves. And finding heart-shaped things, sort of a little game we were playing with ourselves. Anything you look for, you're going to find it. So you can be looking for a great job, a great relationship, a great friend, a great car. It doesn't matter. But the minute you allow yourself to dream in that direction, the minute you tell your brain, you know what, right now I'm only going to look for things that are heart-shaped, then you're going to find them. You're going to program your brain to find those things. Have you ever bought a car, and then when you're driving away from buying your car, you realize that everyone else that you see has the same car? Yep. That's kind of the same. That's the same thing. We attract those things that we look for. We attract those things that we have programmed our brain to bring to us. And the trick is programming your brain to find you what you want rather than what you don't want. If we spend all our time complaining, we're going to find more things to complain about. Yep. And, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. See, I knew that wasn't going to work out, so now it's not going to work out. Now nothing else is going to work out. And that's what we do to ourselves a lot of the time. So kind of change your perspective, change your viewpoint, change how you feel about things, and change what you're looking for. When I was a kid, I used to play a game with my grandmother. We would walk to the grocery store, and she would tell me before we left our house, we're going to look for pennies. And sure enough, every single walk, we seemed to find at least one penny. And I always thought that was funny. And at one point, I thought my grandmother was throwing away pennies so that I would find them. We would always find them. And later on, when I was really, really broke one time, my daughter was very young, we went to the grocery store, and I said, you know what? Today, I'm looking for quarters. And we'd find quarters. And that same day, it was right before Thanksgiving, and I was going into a grocery store with not enough money to buy all the things I wanted. And we were walking into the store, and this man comes out with a cart full of turkeys. And he says, are you a single mom? And I said, yes, I am. And he says, here, and gave us a turkey. Well, that was the bigger expense of the things I didn't have enough money for. So then I had a turkey. So then I could go and I could do other things. But I really honestly believe it's because we were looking for change. That kind of, if you're one of the people who I know listen to the show, who has pretty much had a life filled with trauma, it's really difficult to believe that you're worth having money or you're worth having a good job. So start wherever you are. I had a mentor one time that taught me to get up in the morning, look in the mirror, and tell myself that it was going to be a great day. And that progressed to applauding myself when I looked into the mirror. These days, a lot of people are doing the 5-second thing. I think her name is Mel Robbins, I believe, is the person who came up with
yes.
this. When you high-five yourself in the mirror. And in my mind, that was a huge progression for me. Number one was I had to learn to look myself in the eyes. Number two was I had to tell myself that it was going to be a great day. And by the time I got to applauding myself or even doing a high five, that was months of work for me. And I say that because I was an incredibly damaged person, literally from day one in my life. And I know a lot of people that listen to this show feel the same way. And we talk about money, and I've had so many wonderful comments and so many wonderful people messaging me about the money shows that we've done, that it made me realize that a lot of you are where I was when I started. And that is nothing to be ashamed of.
No,
you just
not
have
at
to
all.
start where you are. But you have to start. And it starts with training your brain to see the good. You're not a bad person. You're not a stupid person. You're not any of those other things that people have told you are. You're a worthy person. You are a person worth loving. You are a person worth having those things that you really want in your life come true for you. But you have to start. Start where you are. I know there are so many people proclaiming coaching, that they are a coach in this world right now. And I see it on Facebook all the time, and I'm sure it's on social media, other places too, where, think and you can have it. And yeah, but you have to start where you are. And we've had this discussion in previous shows years ago. Start where you are. If you are not in a position where you believe you are worthy of that new car or that big house or that new relationship, you're going to sabotage yourself. So start where you are. Truly, the most valuable relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. And only by cultivating a loving relationship with yourself can you have any outside validation at all, because you're not believing you're worth it. So start where you are. Start with your self-esteem. Start with loving yourself. Go on, people always ask me how to, go on YouTube, search YouTube for building self-esteem or building self-love or how to love yourself. You will find hundreds of subliminals, of discussions. There are even very, very good psychologists and psychiatrists and very well-known teachers who do YouTube videos about loving yourself and building self-esteem and self-confidence. So start there. In our society, we're really, really, really focused on money. You're not going to have a good relationship with money if you don't have a good relationship with yourself. It's just not. It just doesn't happen that way. So maybe all of us need to take a giant step back, and instead of looking outside of ourselves, instead of thinking, I'll feel good about myself when I have that job, or I'll feel good about myself when I have so much money in the bank, just feel good about yourself. It is amazing how quickly things change. It really, truly is. I promise you. I know there's people listening right now that are in a really, really, really tough situation, and we've got the holidays coming up, and that's an extra stress on everyone. It always is. So just be good to yourself. Instead of worrying about money, trust yourself. So, like Lisa said, she knows another job will come along because she has that faith in herself. So wherever you are, whatever situation you're in, have a little faith in yourself. It takes time to develop. I understand that. And we are not here to judge you. We are not here to say you should be farther along than you are. We're not here to say anything about your personal situation right now at all. What we're saying is if you want to change, you can. But and I'm always amazed at how many people really don't know where they are. So maybe talk to yourself, listen to what you say, listen to the words you choose, and figure out where you are. Are you happy? Do you know what happiness is? It's amazing to me how many people I talk to who don't even understand how to feel happy. And if you've been traumatized most of your life, it's hard because you have to trust that if you allow yourself to be happy, the sky isn't going to fall on top of you, because literally that is what people think. So it's important to cultivate a relationship with money. It's important to learn how to budget. It is important to learn how to find a job. But before you start concentrating on money, concentrate on loving yourself, accepting yourself, seeing yourself as the wonderful being you are. And I know that was a mouthful, Lisa. So what do you think about any of that?
I love that you mentioned the shadow work, because, not the shadow work, the mirror work, because our brain doesn't really know the difference between what we are feeling in the physical world and what is not a part of our physical world, as far as our thoughts, our imagination, things along those lines, our dreams, all of that, the words that we tell ourselves, the conversation that we have with ourselves. There really isn't a way for our brain to differentiate the two. And a lot of the work that I like to look at are coaches who help you with the mindset and mastering your own mind, while they're including all the neurological aspects, science and whatnot behind it. And I know we've talked about that in the past in other shows. But when you're doing that mirror work, and we've talked about the mirror work in the past, like you mentioned, when you when you do the mirror work, you're literally tricking your brain to rewire, to recreate a new connection to your physical self. And that's something that's very invaluable. That is the fake it till you make it. Somewhat. It's a little skewed, but that is the concept of faking it until you make it. If you can't look yourself in the eye when you start, that's fine. Just try to look at yourself. If you can't say it as loud as you should, or as loud as you think you should, or if you don't believe it, it's okay. You start somewhere. And the first time I was actually able to really look at myself and tell myself that I loved myself while looking myself in the eye, it's amazing how much harder it is to look your own self in the eye than it is to force yourself to look somebody else in the eye. Just throwing that out there. But the first time that I was telling myself this, and I was to the point where I could look myself in the eye in the mirror and tell myself that I loved myself, and say a couple of other nice things about myself as well, because my self-talk was terrible at that time. When I looked myself in the eye and said, I love you, and it was real at that time, and I felt it, and I felt it bounce back at me because I was looking in the mirror, right? So it was bouncing back to me, and I received the message that I told myself. I bawled. It was the most cathartic thing that I had done for myself in a very long time. And it was just beautiful and messy and incredible, and just, it was so comforting, because there is truth behind you are all that you need. You are all of the love that you need, and when you have enough love, you have enough to give back to the world. And we are our own best friend first, or should be.
Right.
So the mirror work is something I would, if it's too hard to just look yourself in the mirror and say some nice things, you can write a couple of messages to yourself and start off just by reading the messages. what are the 5 things you love most about yourself? Write that in a little list. I had them dancing all around me. So I stood in the mirror and I started writing little messages around me, and I drew hearts and I drew X's and O's, and I just made it, cute little messages, and I called myself beautiful. And I talked about the things, not so much the physical aspects, but the things that I loved about myself. I am smart. I am intelligent. I am kind. I have so much love to give. Things along those lines. And I just wrote those little messages around me. And I had an expo, like the little dry erase markers or Sharpies. I did that once as well. You can just write yourself messages. And then I stood there and I drew a heart around my image in the mirror, so that anytime I stepped in front of that mirror, there was a heart, there was love right there around me. And it was something I could physically see and make my brain start to believe that.
And, sometimes that's the thing, people give up too soon. I think so many people start out doing everything you've just described, and then for some reason they say, okay, well, it isn't working because, I still feel the same. You have to keep going. Give yourself the gift of being kind and patient with yourself. Anytime we're trying to make very deep changes, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about making very, very deep, lasting changes. It takes a little bit of time. So, don't give up when, you haven't changed 1,000% in a week. Literally it took me months.
Yeah.
And then you have to realize while you are working on changing yourself and being a better you, life still happens. While you're doing your inner work and you're working to build your self-esteem and your self-love, life is still going on around you. And all of these people who have been used to treating you a certain way, they're still going to treat you that way. And you have to be strong enough within yourself to just not give up. Never give up on yourself. And, I do see people doing that all the time. You just have to keep going. And people always ask me, well, for how long? As long as it takes. Literally for as long as it takes. I know a young person right now who is struggling trying to learn a foreign language. And I think that's a very similar situation. If you are used to feeling a certain way about yourself and you're struggling to change your self-view and you're struggling to build your self-esteem, you're struggling to like yourself, it's like you're teaching your brain a foreign language. And that takes some time. And in this particular young person, their teacher is a very, very wise teacher, said, study for the test right now before you're ready to. If you keep learning and you keep practicing, you'll get there. And this is the same thing. If you keep practicing and you keep working and you keep standing in front of the mirror and smiling at yourself, telling yourself to others, even if right this second you think that's a lie, keep doing it. It will feel right eventually. Some of us have had a lot more garbage to live through than others. And for whatever reason, at least the listeners that I hear from seem to fit that category. Keep going. Okay, you can't look yourself in the eyes this morning and say, I love you. Can you look down into your sink and say, I love you? Strongest if you use your name. Try that. Maybe that feels better. Or maybe just staring into your own eyes in the mirror is what you can do. And don't say anything. That's okay, too. Start wherever you are. Start learning to love yourself. It's hard. It's not easy. There's not a magic wand. But I promise you, you keep going, you'll get there. And then all these several weeks that we've been talking about money will all make a lot more sense. And you'll realize that while you've learned to love yourself, you're attracting different events into your life. You start attracting the people who need to be in your life, who deserve to be in your life. You start attracting, a better job or a better living situation or a better car or whatever it is you're trying to manifest. But anytime we are manifesting anything, and when we're talking about money, we're talking about manifesting that. The first thing you need to manifest is self-esteem and self-love. Because if you don't love yourself, no one else really will either. And that's a really hard realization to come to. So don't give up. Keep going. Do you have anything that you would like to cover or say right now? Because I think that's about all I had today.
I think that was a beautiful ending. I just want to leave it at that.
All right. Well, I know it's a shorter show than usual, guys, but we packed a lot into it. So keep going, and we will talk to you again next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Your home can be more than just a home. It can be your own personal fitness retreat, a place where you break a sweat, break your personal record, or just get a break in the day. Johnson Fitness and Wellness is your partner in creating the perfect home gym. And now, enjoy up to 50% off top-rated treadmills, ellipticals starting at $5.99, and major discounts on strength equipment. Visit a local store or johnsonfitness.com. Your home gym is just a few steps away.